The web is the digital version of capitalism. The new barons of capitalism, the young men in Google and Yahoo and MySpace and Twitter, they created their ideological wet dream. Nonsense, in my view, about democratization and egalitarianism and the opening up of everything. On the other hand, these young men are becoming infinitely rich and powerful. They are subjects or victims of false consciousness, that they're wrong, that they're believing in something that doesn't really exist, and they're dupes or they're exploited, particularly those of them who stupidly give away their labor for free so that young men in Silicon Valley can become infinitely rich.
Is this generation, are they going to be all right? Are the kids going to be doing okay, or should we...
Kids are all right.
I think one of the things that has happened to the first generation of kids to grow up always being online, which by the way are my kids, they have never experienced dial-up or anything like that. They've always had always on. And what I've seen is they have a global awareness that was not present in my generation. They really feel as if this is one world.
I almost wonder if on some level the problems that we have to tackle as a human race have presented themselves at the exact same time that the technology to actually address them in a compelling global way has also appeared.
The future of the 21st century is going to involve some version of globalization, and we have to get globalization to work.
The internet is global. The world is global.
And that means we have to somehow figure out ways to break down certain barriers that exist between people.
So of course, social technology is going to have a massive impact in terms of how people organize politically, what they do economically, and how they express themselves as being unique individuals in a social way.
Social barriers, things of that sort.
The kinds of things that we have to solve as global citizens, we actually have the tools to be able to solve them.
And I think that's probably an equally important dimension of it.
When you look at the fact that media is global today in a way that it never was before, it is going to have fundamental impact on the way the world works, and I think that's a good thing.
I honestly believe that if you were to go back into the 1920s and take an ordinary, semi-educated 15-year-old and place him next to an ordinary, semi-educated 15-year-old now, you would find the one now knows more, understands more, is more socially confident, is more aware of the rest of the world, is more able and more adept at research.
In the past, I think people have just kind of consumed their knowledge, or I guess their perception of the world just through media, which again isn't always unbiased.
25 years ago, we didn't have a way to impact the world in one single instant. Today we do, and it's through the internet.
When you start seeing everyday life from everyday people on the streets, no matter what country they live in, I think it adds a very personal element to that people can connect with, and they start understanding that they have families, they have feelings, they have dreams, just like I do.
No one is alone anymore, and I actually think that's a really powerful thing.
And not hearing just the biased stories that they would tune in and see on the news.
We should embrace and welcome social technology, not fear it.
They also feel as if they are always connected to everyone else. There is a feeling of being connected that I did not have in my generation.
The web is about it's connecting humanity. All right, the web is humanity connected. That includes a lot of things, and friends is one of them.
We are the social animal par excellence, or by devilry, if you like, if not necessarily excellence.
Gossiping, you were flirting, you were kind of consuming culture and consuming merchandise, but it was part of this all-encompassing social experience. The same thing is actually happening fully online, right?
And so it's up to people who use it to decide whether it is going to represent the best of human nature or the worst of human nature. And realistically, it's probably going to be a little bit of both.
Let's get real about this. Connection is what humans crave.
That there is a fundamental quality in human nature that likes to share information.
It's what we are all about. It's something that separates us from animals. It even comes before the fact that we have language, because the language is an example of a, if you like, a neural technology we have created to answer this need for connection.
I mean, if you think something is cool or interesting, what's the first thing you want to do with it? Tell everybody you like.
So Twitter, which is a good example, when that arrived, the press said, oh, the most banal, ridiculous, fatuous. 2 weeks later, join our Twitter stream, @daily whatever.
So fundamentally, again, social technologies are reflective of human nature, whether it's, connecting you to the people that you know or connecting you to people around the things that you care about.
We are constantly in need of connecting with people for friendship, love.
Everything that people are doing in terms of learning how to connect with other people online is towards a common goal.
Sex, knowledge, growth.
So whether that common goal is sharing news articles for fun,
enmity, territoriality,
or entertaining themselves by listening to amazing music.
We've created villages and towns to help us do that, and roads.
All of those skills can actually be used for anything.
And now we've created something else that allows us to do it even more.
The possibilities and the opportunities for people to live a rich, passionate life that allows them to express themselves in all the ways that they want to, regardless of where they live geographically. I don't think it gets any better than that.
And I think the third thing is that there is a sense of movement forward, the sense of going somewhere, of maybe you might call it progress, that I think was not present in previous generations.
I think it's going to be pretty amazing to see how the next generation, I guess, evolves, if you want to call it that, because of their access to technology, but ultimately their access to information.
Our dream is that anybody, anywhere may have access to anything that human beings do with their minds one day. Because that capacity is being given us by the internet. And that can change everything.
I think education is being redefined. It's not necessarily about memorization. It's about finding, searching for answers.
Try to assure to humanity the right to know. Which is a right that hasn't been previously promulgated.
We're talking about social change and political change and economic change in a way that was never possible before.
You have an infinite amount of resources available to you. Where this next generation, I guess they're much more knowledgeable.
What are the ways that we're going to make it the best of what people can be, as opposed to the worst of what people can be?
The traditional models would survive around scarcity, which I don't think necessarily is healthy for society.
In the 20th century, if you had something to say in public, you couldn't, period.
The principal way in which power exerts itself is by creating reality distortion fields around the control of information.
Right. If you were a civilian, if you were a citizen but not a media professional, you could not broadcast a message, no matter how hard you tried.
You don't have to control people much if you can control what they believe, and you can control what they believe if you control what they have access to.
For ultimately a few people to have the control of the creation of all the content within the world, and then have the control of all the distribution of the content in the world.
People who went out of their way to try to get messages out in public through amateur channels, right? Holding up signs on the street or by the roadside, were widely regarded as being kind of off their rockers.
Now with the internet, people have access to create and distribute on their own. People can share their own thoughts and feelings, experiences, talents.
And that change is enormous, that anyone who wants to participate, has at least the means to participate, is a huge change.
That you can be sitting in your pajamas on your couch and help drive, world peace. That is actually happening today. That's possible in a way that it was never possible before.
So in that sense of the word democratic, the web has been this huge increase in the participatory logic of the media environment.
Does it mean that people have shorter attention spans? Yes, but is that a bad thing?
The human mind has its limitations.
Have they developed strange thumbs? Do they have peculiar ways of talking and listening? Do their eyes glaze over when they have to concentrate for more than 30 seconds? No, I don't believe any of that.
Humans are more likely to achieve their ultimate purpose, whatever that may be, if they have the capacity to completely explore the possibility space of what can be known.
What is possible today with social technologies is profound.
It quite literally delivers power to the people.
This surely is the way that we can harness vox populi, vox dei, the will of the people.
It essentially opens up participation in the public sphere. Right?
They are making their own decisions. They understand if they're, reading a post or about to click on a link, where that's going to take them. So I think everyone's now is kind of conscious of how maybe people are trying to shape their thoughts or feelings.
The social web can do more good in the world than it can do bad. And it's the choice of people and the people who are using it as to what they want to do with it. It is the most empowering generational shift that has ever happened. Regardless of whether you think, social technology and the internet is good or bad, it is. The genie is out of the bottle.
Right now we're in that moment of transition, that point of absolute confusion, the uncertainty of, what does it mean that you have everything up there? Down the road, it just becomes the way things are.
I'm not particularly negative or pessimistic about the social qualities, the linguistic qualities, the concentration qualities of Generation Web.
I think the reality is that it's here. It's not going away.
Yeah, I mean, some genies, when they're let out of a bottle, can cause problems, and they certainly can't ever go back in the bottle. When cars first arose, people were horrified at the deaths on the road. Horrified, they couldn't believe it. I mean, there were hundreds of people being squelched every day. It was grotesque. And if you just braked in a car at 30 miles an hour, you'd kill yourself on the steering wheel, you'd break your neck. People were dying all the time. Did they say, oh, that's it then? We can't have cars, sorry. In the same way as if someone says, actually, these mobile phones do give out microwaves, and they will give you brain cancer, are we going to say, oh, well, that's the end of that technology then? Not on your Nelly. There's a risk-reward ratio here, and for us, the reward is so great that whatever the risk is, we try and contain it and understand it at best. But what we don't do is say the risk is too great.